Right now on the Citizen Report, Ghislaine Maxwell arrested. We'll tell you about the strange circumstances surrounding her arrest and her final days as a free person. Also ahead, shocking footage exposes the hypocrisy of the mask requirement in North Carolina. Plus, General Michael Flynn is back in the news and is sending shockwaves on the internet, and it has to do with Q. The Citizen Report starts now. And welcome to the Citizen Report. I'm Jonathan Shannon in North Carolina. As always, this newscast is real, in-depth, American. So glad everyone can join us. And my co-host David Heller will join us in just a few moments. But first, I have some major news to share with you, several big stories to talk about. And Ghislaine Maxwell, the British socialite long associated with Epstein, has been arrested and is now, as of tonight, being transferred to a New York, I believe it's a New York City prison, but I know it's in New York State. And also, we've got some news to share with you regarding masks here in North Carolina. Their agenda has been further exposed because, again, this has nothing to do with health. This is all about control, and I will show you that, show you more proof of that in practice in just a few moments. But also, Michael Flynn is also making some waves in the news as well. But first, I want to start about Ghislaine Maxwell because, of course, as I just said, she has been indicted and, in fact, arrested. She is, in fact, in custody. And some very strange news, some strange developments, if you will. This is from John B. Wells on Twitter. And this is regarding Ghislaine Maxwell. Apparently, there's already some stuff, and of course, this could be fake. There's no concrete, smoking gun. But this is to show that that obviously we need to pay close attention to this. And then, in fact, if something does happen to her, you've seen it first. That in fact, they could be, again, this could be fake, but they could be plotting something to try to, let's just say Epstein did not kill himself. So as you can see here, John B. Wells on Twitter said they deleted the article already, which was predated July 11th, but someone grabbed screenshots. Retweet the hell out of this. We're on to them. #QArmy. Now this, again, I can't vouch for the authenticity of this. Sometimes we've seen stuff like this come out that turned out to be, fake and, just to try to stir things up. But I thought I'd mention this right off the bat. This purports to be from the BBC News website where it's dated, as he said, 11 July 2020. Ghislaine Maxwell moved to intensive care as coronavirus symptoms worsen. I mean, cut me a break. I mean, have we not heard enough about COVID-19 already? We are now, this is the 6th of July. And yet we keep hearing about coronavirus being this and that. And I'll talk about that as well coming up in just a few moments. But I think this is very, very interesting. Now, of course, I can't vouch for the authenticity of this. If this turns out to be a fake screenshot, then okay, whatever. But I thought I'd bring this to y'all's attention, just keep in the back of your head in case if something were to happen down the road, let's just say. I want to also talk about, and by the way, let me also mention this. I was about to forget to mention this, but let me say this as well. Now, we knew that Ghislaine Maxwell was in, I believe, a Paris, at least it was widely rumored, widely suggested or reported, whatever word might have been used at the time, that she was in this, she was basically in a hideout, I want to say in Paris, although I'm not sure if it was in Paris. I believe it was in France. And then don't you find it kind of odd that all of a sudden she shows up and arrested? She was arrested apparently in the state of New Hampshire. And I think it's kind of odd that when you use critical thinking, when you think about the deep state, they don't want us thinking critically. And yet, if you think critically, you realize that, one, how is it that she could possibly get through customs without something being flagged? Like, that someone like her, they would be monitoring her. When you go through, I'm not an expert in this, but I'll just say I know a little bit about passports, and I know certainly enough to say that when you go through customs, a record is generated. Even if your passport is not stamped, if you come back in, I think she's British, so I don't know if she ever acquired American citizenship, but I can just say purely from an American standpoint, even though I've never been out of the country yet, that when you come back into the country, they often don't stamp your passport. In fact, I think it's just kind of the general practice that they don't stamp your passport if you're an American citizen, if you hold an American passport, because you already have the right to be here. But despite that, even in a case like that, you still have a record. There is a computer record, or whatever you want to call it, that is generated. It says so-and-so's person went through so-and-so port of entry, so-and-so date and time, and this, I assume, customs officer processed the entry, if you will, an immigration. So I think it's kind of odd that you have someone like her taking at face value, if it was really true that she was really outside the country, that she would go from France back to the United States, and we didn't know about this until she was in New Hampshire, and she was arrested in New Hampshire. Now, something very interesting, X22 report brought this up. This is not what he said, although he shared this and quoted it. But this is originally from somebody else. CJ Truth on Twitter shared this. This is what I have thought about Ghislaine when she was arrested this past week. This has been going on for a while. All optics last week. Deep state panic. Enjoy the show. Now, I think that's very interesting. In fact, if I may, I do apologize. This is on my phone. I screenshotted it as I was listening to the broadcast. I'm trying to get it. I hope that y'all can see at least the essence of what I'm trying to share. I should have sent this over to my computer to share the screen for, but anyways, but underneath that what CJ Truth on Twitter said, there was also a screenshot, not just of her picture, but also something that was said. It kind of looks like in an on post. I can't be sure of that, but it kind of looks like it to me. And this is what it says, and I quote: "Why nobody should buy the Ghislaine Maxwell story. How can anyone believe she was living in New Hampshire and all of the U.S. intelligence agencies didn't know she was even there? Does anyone actually believe this? She used GMax as her new cell phone name. Gee, wonder who that is. She fooled the FBI? LOL. No, you see, she was already a cooperating witness, probably going back months ago. The FBI had her wiretapped as many scared pedophiles and co-conspirators reached out and contacted her through phone, email, and person." Now, that wasn't the only screenshot. There's another one here that I'll mention as well. This was also courtesy of X22 Report. I screenshotted it as I was listening to his broadcast earlier tonight. And again, I apologize for the low quality. I'm just having to quote this. I literally just saw this within a couple hours ago. It looks like, I'm going to make it bigger for myself to read. This is from Mike Bravo on Twitter at Mike Bravo Dude. This is what he says: How much you want to bet the co-conspirators reached out to their pals to let them know the video was destroyed? Maxwell was Mossad. Was she the Queen Q mentioned in May? And then underneath that, there's a couple of screenshots, and looks like August 14, 2018 from Q, showing looks like MOS. I assume that means Mossad, trickling down to alt U.S. media, U.S. politicians, and then trickling down further. Those who scream the loudest find the connections one by one by one by one. Primary, affiliate A, affiliate B, and then affiliate so on. Marching to the same beat. Coincidence? Logical thinking? Q. Now, in May 19, 2020, and again, I have to apologize, I'm just reading this off my phone. May 19, 2020, there was another Q post. How about a nice game of chess? And then there's a link. Objective end, and the word end is in brackets in bold. Checkmate king. Do you attack the king at the beginning? Do you attack and remove pawns first? Do you attack and remove bishops? And part of it's cut off. You'll have to pardon that. Do you attack and remove queen? See, that's the word, queen. Mid, and I can't read the last half, but you get the gist of it. Is the game being played public or private? Do emotions affect critical thinking? Add important king control pieces. And something's in bold. It looks like it's the start of the word eliminate. Add, how do you set the stage? And then the word board is brackets in bold. And then the quote, at this time, Q. Now, next to that, we have a tweet also from Mike Bravo. He shared a article from the epochtimes.com. The headline reads, Ghislaine Maxwell guarded by former U.S. Navy SEALs after multiple ... And then, well, I'll read to you the first sentence of that article since it's actually was previewed on the tweet. Jeffrey Epstein's former associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, is being guarded by former U.S. Navy SEALs amid concern that her life is in danger. Oh, I bet she's worried. And given what happened to Epstein, yeah, I couldn't blame her a bit for being nervous about her well-being. And Mike Bravo says, this is what Mike Bravo says on his tweet here, cooperating witness for a year at least. She was a sting op to catch her handlers and all the pedos from the island. See, this is the thing. You got to use logical thinking because it makes no sense on planet Earth that someone like her, that literally everyone on the face of the earth, well, maybe not everyone, but I'd say at least 50% of the developed world population at least has some semblance of kind of knowing what's going on, at least generally or vaguely at the minimum. But she, again, apparently she was in France. Again, I don't know that for sure. I don't have articles to back up what I'm saying, but that's what I've heard over time, and I've just kind of assembled this in my head. And then she would come back to the United States, and nobody arrested her on site. See, that doesn't even make sense. Again, as I said, even if you don't get your passport stamped, if you're an American citizen, you don't have to. You have a right to be here. But I'm just saying that you do have a record of coming into this country, and it's real time. As soon as you enter the country, and modern times, your passport operates much in the same way like a contactless debit card. It's kind of like I'm going to try not to show my card number on the air here, but this is one of my cards I have. You see this little icon right here? See that? That's kind of what I'm talking about, at least generally speaking, because what we're talking about is basically where, okay, pretend, okay, this is my wallet, but you'll have to use your imagination and pretend that this is a credit card terminal, right? You're at a grocery store, you're buying something. Well, instead of using, the magnetic strip or the chip, a lot of them are now enabled to do this. You just kind of tap it and, well, you might have to hold it for a second, but, you get the idea. Well, passports, although are more, I would say they're more, I don't know if they're more sophisticated or not, but I would just say that at the minimum, passports, you can kind of think of it in a similar fashion. And when you do that with a passport, they have the way of doing it at customs. My point being is that There is absolutely no way on the planet Earth, whether if it was done manually or through such a manner that I just mentioned, or likeness thereof, there is absolutely no way that she would not have been noticed. And it would have been instantaneous. As soon as that information was captured, if her name was flagged, and I bet you anything it would have been, if they were looking for her, they would have immediately known in seconds, and they would not have allowed her to go out into the airport, or they would have allowed her to go out in the airport and then arrest her, whatever. But my point is that if she turned out to be if she was kind of a turncoat to kind of do intel against her former allies, and basically be wired up and to catch her handlers and whatever, it would not surprise me in the least. And it actually makes a good deal of sense. And again, we're just speculating here, and I'm careful to make that distinction, but we'll have to see how this plays out. But I would not be surprised if for a while now she was actually getting intel for the U.S. government or whoever, perhaps as part of an agreement. I don't know. I'm just speculating, and others are speculating. We don't know. But you have to say it's very odd that, and I remember hearing, and again, I'm just remembering what I heard. I think it may have been Fox News that said this, that her house in New Hampshire was bought through an LLC in all cash. Just I want to say last year, or it wasn't that long ago. And I wouldn't even be surprised if that was a shell corporation set up, to, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But we'll have to see how this plays out. If anybody has any more information on this, please pass it along. I would greatly appreciate that. And I do need to keep moving on here for time's sake. First thing I will mention is about coronavirus. I think that would be most appropriate to talk about next. We have the mainstream media absolutely going bonkers, trying to push their narrative as hard as they can possibly push it. And I'm telling you, they're not going to succeed. In the meantime, they're beating their chest saying, it's the end of the world, and everyone's got to wear a mask, and you're selfish if you don't. It's just completely. I mean, the idea of wearing a mask is like wearing a Kleenex. I mean, and apparently, as I just heard, and I don't know if this is true, I can't prove it, but I've also heard that your ears absorb stuff. So it's like, okay, so what's the point of wearing a mask? I mean, you got to wear earmuffs too, and while you're at it, wearing glasses. I mean, how completely insane. I mean, and actually, if you really want to take it all the way, your skin absorbs stuff. Your skin, like germs, and like think about your veins and how close they are to your skin right here. If you have something on here, there's a good chance that some of that could be absorbed. I mean, if you put hand sanitizer on, if you get enough, I mean, it wouldn't even surprise me if it shows up in your bloodstream as if you were drinking when you're not. You're just used too much hand sanitizer. My point being is that we have completely lost our minds to think masks do anything. They're just they are a way of submission. They are control. You should not believe the mainstream media, and do not let people shame you into wearing a mask and give up your own convictions in order to just get on in society. I'm sorry, I'm not doing it, and you shouldn't either. It's your decision, but I'm saying, as for me, I will not be wearing a mask. Okay, so. I don't intend to wear a mask, is what I should say. But something very interesting just came to my attention this evening. In Florida, of course, as I said, the mainstream media was making it out to be that, the coronavirus is so terrible. I mean, it's completely insane. And what we have just seen is Ron DeSantis has just countered the mainstream narrative. Read this headline from WFLA.com, and you'll have to pardon the fact that I had to send this over to printfriendly.com because I just had it with the, sometimes the websites are just there's just too many elements on there, or too many, they just over format everything. But this is an attempt to simplify it. Headline, coronavirus has stabilized in Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis says. Governor Ron DeSantis said Monday he believes coronavirus has stabilized in Florida. And of course, they try to spin this by saying a grave milestone. As message came as after this weekend's grave milestone of the state recording more than 200,000 total cases. Well, let me stop right there, because this is complete nonsense to say, okay, how do I even say this? If you have coronavirus, let's think about this for a second. Just because you have a count of coronavirus does not mean that it's a big deal. Yes, you have those cases, particularly in nursing homes. I will certainly say that, yes, it's very serious in circumstances like that where you have a truly compromised situation. If you're particularly a weak immune system or whatever, if you're really well up in age, that's inherent with anything. The flu, the common cold even, certainly tuberculosis, anything else. But if you're asymptomatic, which means you don't really exhibit symptoms, and they consider that to be a count, I just wonder how much of those 200,000 cases were asymptomatic. I'd love to know that, because if it turns out that a substantial amount, of that was asymptomatic, meaning little or no symptoms, I guess, then that would tell me that it's not exactly a grave milestone in terms of a widespread thing. And as David X22 said, when it's all said and done, don't be surprised if it's no longer considered a pandemic or even an epidemic. This is me talking now, this is going to go down into history as one of the most overreactions that we have ever, as a collective society, have undertaken. But who could really blame the average person who doesn't know better from thinking critically? Because they have watched the mainstream media, I should say, and they don't hear the truth. They don't hear the truth of coronavirus. If you get coronavirus, you have, disregarding age groups, just talking about as the whole, over 99% chance of surviving. I'm going to say that again. Over 99% chance of survival. You have a survival rate of over 99%. It's true. And now, as more people get quote unquote get coronavirus and they're asymptomatic, or I should say asymptomatic, in case if I didn't say that right, asymptomatic, meaning no or very, very little, very hard, basically indecipherable, the symptoms, if any, meaning in generally no symptoms. Okay. As that continues to happen, the death rate is going to go even lower and lower and lower, 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 lower. Okay? The death rate keeps declining, and yet they want to lock things back down again. In my state, they have already implemented a mandatory mask requirement. If you go into a store, you have to wear a face mask. Well, I'm sorry, I'm not wearing one. I did buy a mask because here's the thing. My dad was in a hospital, and if I had to wear a mask to just be able to see my dad, I would have done it. That one time, I would have done it because I wasn't going to, keep that from, being able to see my dad. But the thing is that I wasn't even able to do that because they have such ridiculous restrictions on masks in the hospital, excuse me. They have such restrictions on who can even be in the hospital right now that I couldn't even, as the son, couldn't even go in. It had to be one person. It had to be the same one person for that patient, which was my mom, who's married to my dad, of course. And the idea, so, again, I had the mask. I put it on one time, and it took me about half a second to realize that I did not feel comfortable wearing that mask. So don't tell me that it's somehow this normal thing. We were not created to wear masks, and I'm not going to go to a store and wear one. And by the way, if you're in a jurisdiction, I'm just saying right now, if you're in a jurisdiction that doesn't require them, and yet you as a store require face masks, I'm not shopping there. I'm just going to say that right now. If you say that I have to wear a face mask and the tyrants don't require it, of course, if they do, it's color of law anyway. And, I did an episode on color of law. If you go back and look in the, few months ago, I guess, I forget now exactly when, but, if you say that, if you say that I have to wear a face mask and even the government doesn't say it's required, I'm not going there. I'm not just another store I wouldn't go into. Okay. Unless you were like a restaurant and you did some kind of drive-through. Okay. Maybe then, but if I have to do it to go in your store, I'm not doing it. And if you end up going out of business because of that, because of your requirement for a face mask, I'm sorry. I can't help you there. That was your choice. And as for these jurisdictions, like the state of North Carolina that requires them, I will just remind you that there are a number of sheriffs who have said that, no, we're not going to enforce this. And good for them, because sheriffs are the highest law enforcement on the county level. So, if the sheriff says they're not going to enforce it, then it's time for the people of that county to disregard the face mask order as well, because the sheriff stands with them, is what I'm trying to say. Like in Gaston County, these stores that still require face masks, after the sheriff had already said he's not going to enforce it, you need to stop requiring face masks, because your sheriff has already said he's not going to require it. Now, I get it. If you're in the city of Gastonia, if you're in these city limits where you have these other people involved, we'll say, because Gaston County is a Republican county, but Gastonia, the city, is Democrat, unfortunately, at least on a mayor level. But but I'm saying, disregarding the city limits issue, just the county itself, okay? The sheriff has said that he's not going to enforce it, in so many words, okay? Now, there's that. Now let me show you the real shocker. I think you're going to be pretty surprised at what I'm fixing to share with you. You'll have to bear with me one moment as I get this up. Yes, I want to share computer sound. And let me see if I can make this any bigger for you. Yes, I want to make this bigger. I'm trying to make this as big as I can in a reasonable fashion in this format. Okay, here we go. Now this is Dr. Mandy Cohen. She is okay, that's a little too big. Okay, my apologies, technical difficulties at the moment, but I'll just keep talking. So Dr. Mandy Cohen is however the title's articulated, she is the North Carolina Health Director. I'm sure I'm simplifying the name, but that's how I think it's best understood. She is the State Health Director, okay? let's see, what does it say? NCDHHS Secretary. Okay, whatever, big deal. Now, all right, here we go. Now, prepare to be amazed, because what you're fixing to see is a load of absolute total hypocrisy. She's telling us to wear masks, and then look, she thinks she's not on camera yet, and look what she does. Just watch. Watch closely. She's entering the room. No mask. Oh, now she's putting it on, sorta, kind of hovering over her face, and and she then removes it. Yeah. So let me watch this again. Oh, let's just watch this through a few more seconds. Okay. So I guess she thought she wasn't on camera. See, she's entering the room now. No mask. Her sidekick, whoever he is, has a mask. She does not have a mask on. And then look, she holds it over her face, and then she removes it. I guess she thinks she's only then coming into the camera frame. And then, of course, she doesn't have a mask on. She's acting like she just removed it, being the good citizen, good compliant citizen.
Good afternoon.
I don't even know what to say to this. I mean, how completely insane is this? How much more do you need to see? This is the person who, when the governor's holding a press conference, she's right there with him, and now she does this. Can you explain to me how this can possibly be okay to make us, as citizens who we give the power?
Good afternoon.
Okay, I'm going to mute this now. We as citizens are the sovereign. We give certain powers, we delegate certain authority to the government to provide for common defense, ensure general welfare, all together basically to protect our rights. Not to take away our rights, because I guarantee you, making us wear masks is the same thing as making us give up our rights. That is giving up a right. I have the right to breathe clean air unadulterated, and yet you make me have to wear a mask, which I'm not going to do, and yet you aren't even wearing one yourself unless you think you're on camera, and then I guess it's okay. Unbelievable. But switching gears now, Michael Flynn, General Michael Flynn, who just went free from the fake prosecution case that the Obama administration tried to conduct against him in a coup d'etat, because that's what it was. Well, QAnon has been telling us to take the oath. Now people have been wondering as to the meaning of why we should take the oath, which is basically the oath is basically to swear and uphold the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That oath. And this is what. And it turns out now Michael Flynn has done this on camera with his family. Now listen to what he says at the very end. And let me say ahead of time, where we go one, we go all is a cue phrase. Okay. Let me play this for you. I think you're going to be quite amazed. I'm trying to share my screen now. Okay. All right, here we go.
I, Jack Flynn,
do solemnly swear
that
I will support and defend
the
Constitution of the United States
Constitution of the United States
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I take this obligation freely.
That I take this obligation freely.
Without any mental reservation.
Without any mental reservation.
Or purpose of evasion.
Or purpose of evasion.
And that I will well and faithfully. Discharge the duties. Of the office on which I am about to enter. So help me God. Where we go one, we go all. God bless America.
That was pretty good, wasn't it? I mean, that should tell you right there that's a cue proof, and it also shows that General Flynn is on board. And I think it's very interesting. I wasn't planning to show this on the air, but if you can bear with me one moment, I'm going to go ahead and share this with you as well. This is what Q said a few days ago, and I'm scrolling through trying to find it now. But I think that there's a real reason for this, and I think it's yet to be fully revealed as to why. But I think you can kind of start to read in between the lines, and you can kind of begin to see a little bit as to what this is about. I'm endeavoring to pull this up as best as I can, as quickly as I can. I'm trying. Let me just do a search here. But again, this is very encouraging to see, and I'm very seriously thinking about doing it myself. All right, here we go. I'm gonna share my screen because I think it's just good that you see this for yourself. This is a Q post number 4506 on June 24th, just not that long ago. This is regarding Michael Flynn, the People's General soon, Q. Now, this is not I don't think this right here was part of it, but this is whoever maintains the site added this. So again, this is just an assumption. I presume this is an assumption that this has to do with Flynn. So I think it's very, very interesting. We'll have to see how this plays out. And we'll see. We'll just have to see why Q wants us to take the oath of office. I'm seriously thinking about doing that myself in the not too distant future. And let me know what you think about anything I just mentioned, including about the oath or whatever, anything I just talked about. I'd love to hear your feedback. And also, I'm also looking at potential options to expand our reach. Maybe look at a second platform to upload our podcasts to. If you frequent a particular site that you think is a good, independent, free of censorship kind of platform, let me know I just kind of want to see what people think of other platforms. BitChute, I think, is one of them. For the audio, it doesn't include video, but maybe audio. You have Spreaker, which is when this was a college podcast, that was where under the college page, if you will, that was where the Citizen Report was originally home to, if you will. But obviously now it's not a college podcast. It's just purely on my own. Of course, David being my co-host as well. But on that note, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to the segment, which is fixing to be taped. It's yet to be taped, but it will be shortly with my co-host David Heller and myself. So on that note, thank you for watching the Citizen Report. Keep watching the Citizen Report as we cross over to the segment with David and myself right now. And thanks for staying with us here on the Citizen Report. I'm John DeShannon in North Carolina. I'm joined by my good friend and co-host David Heller in Oklahoma. David, how are you tonight?
Doing good. How about you?
I'm doing good. Just amazed by, I was talking with the viewers moments ago about the ridiculousness. And I showed you this off the air, David, that tape of Dr. Mandy Cohen of North Carolina pretending to put on pretending to have her mask on and was just removing it, when in reality she didn't have her mask on. She just held it up to her face and then lowered it to kind of put on this act that she was complying with what they're mandating that we do. So, David, I don't know. I'm just curious. I just want to get your thoughts here on the record of what you think about that, because I just think it's just insane.
She is nuts. She is absolutely nuts. Just like Governor Cooper is. I mean, you and I could probably talk all night long if we wanted to about how ridiculous Governor Cooper is, and the excess amount of vetoes he's done from the legislature just to reopen North Carolina, even.
Right.
But I think the doctor in North Carolina, I think the entire government of North Carolina from top to bottom, Jonathan, is just absolutely nuts.
Well, and of course, Dan Forrest, who's the current lieutenant governor.
The only exception being the lieutenant governor.
Well, I was just fixing to say, lieutenant governor, who's a Republican, granted, he's suing the governor in court about his overreach. And what he's claiming is that the governor is supposed to get counsel from what is called the Council of State. Now, a lot of states don't have this kind of system, but constitutionally, this state has what's called a Council of State. It's basically some of the senior officials. I want to say there's 8 people that constitute this Council of State, but whatever the count is, the governor hasn't been. He should have been. I guess the argument is he hasn't. He should be acting with the consent of the Council of State when he's not. And of course, that Council of State does include Dan Forrest, among others, senior state officials. And I just think, David, I think that the governor here is in deep, deep trouble, because you don't just have that. You've got Reopen NC movement that is finally had it to the point, despite the fact they have made it clear. I have listened to them on talk radio, WBT radio. I've heard them. I've read them online. They have made it emphatically clear. They are nonpartisan. They are, they're trying to not take sides politically. They just want to reopen North Carolina. Despite that, though, notwithstanding that, they are now beginning to push for impeachment and removal of Governor Cooper Davis. So I think that says a lot when you have somebody that's trying to stay out of politics, where they're now calling for his removal.
Exactly, and obviously, I think Reopen North Carolina's done their best that they could to stay out of politics, but it's obviously, you and I were just talking about off the air about how Governor Cooper has been vetoing just about every single attempt that the legislature has made to get North Carolina reopened again.
Right.
I think when you have a governor that vetoes after veto after veto after veto after veto every single effort to get the state economy back going again, it's clear probably to us that the only option that we have left in our arsenal is by impeaching and removing Governor Cooper from office.
Yeah, I mean, I would just personally, I cannot stand Governor Cooper on a personal basis, but I will say this. I would much rather just wait and just defeat him in a landslide in November. But I've told you this off the air, David. I really don't think I'm not trying to fearmonger. I do not want to fearmonger on the Citizen Report. That's not the goal of this podcast. But I must say, in all seriousness, in all honesty, I really do not believe we can wait till November if the governor keeps acting like this, because I know of like the IHOP here in Gastonia, they're not coming back. We've got businesses that are teetering on the edge of the cliff. You got businesses that have either said they're not coming back, or they're saying, look, we're hurting here. We need to be allowed to open, or at least be open legally, because some people have just outright defied his order and be open anyway. And of course, that's legal jeopardy in of itself, because we've had, I forget the name of the speedway. I want to call it Ace Speedway, but I'm not sure if that's what they're called. But some kind of speedway here in North Carolina where they defied his order to be closed. They weren't part of the group of businesses that were allowed to be open. And the governor literally, quite tacitly, issued an order specific to them to shut their doors. And that's the kind of man that we're talking about. And I'd like to remind viewers that it's documented. This is not speculation. This is not rumor. This is confirmed and documented that George Soros, the Nazi war criminal, none other than him, he himself has donated $5,400 to Roy Cooper's campaign. So it just tells you again the kind of ideology this man has. He might look real innocent and just prudent, but behind that mask, David, I think that we're looking at someone that quite literally is quite okay to destroy North Carolina's economy.
Exactly. And I think it's gone to the point where I think, if impeachment is not an option, if the impeachment doesn't go well, I think the only option maybe left is just to move out of the state of North Carolina, period.
Right. Right. And I know I saw I'm not friends with this particular person. He's a friend of a friend. He's I think into video work and stuff. But anyways, this particular person, he's basically said on his own Facebook, and I looked at it earlier today, and he basically said, I'm looking at possibly, and I forget the exact wording, but something about living in Lake Wylie or Clover, which is over the line in South Carolina. So David, I know that there are people that are considering leaving North Carolina. It's happening. People are seriously considering it because we've had it. People have had it in North Carolina, that those who can move are going to look at that. And only those who are the elitists who can afford to live in a state like this, or the very, very disenfranchised, they're not going to be able to move. But those that are in the middle who have the means, I think that we're going to see a lot of good, hardworking, productive citizens leave this state for greener pastures, David.
Exactly. And the thing is, I can't blame them.
No, I can't either.
I
because
can't, I cannot blame him at all because you said it. Cooper is just out there to destroy the entire state of North Carolina. He
well,
is out there to destroy the great state of North Carolina.
well,
Period.
you know, when you're taking money from someone like George Soros, I think you have to be in his back pocket and you know, financially, I should say, and you have to be, you know, look, I don't have the smoking gun. I'm just speculating here, but I can imagine that there's those phone calls that take place that have, you know, Governor Cooper basically on the phone with somebody who's like, well, we've given you money, so, you know, you need to do our bidding, you know, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly, and that's all. That's all I have to say about that. I mean, Cooper needs to be removed from office. Period.
Yeah. My understanding, there
and
is.
if he's not removed from office, then the only option we have left is just to leave the state.
Yeah.
For good.
I think in Reopen NC has indicated there is some. I don't know if the most accurate word would be interest, or at least some degree of affirmation. But there's some flurry. We'll say, how about this? There's some flurry of activity taking place in the legislature, if you will, that the Reopen NC has activated. They are sending out messages to the members of the legislature, and there is a flurry of activity regarding that kind of deal. Now, whether anything will come of it, it's just too early to tell. But I think that this governor needs to really rethink his strategy, because if he doesn't, because look at the other states, South Carolina, Tennessee, they're not perfect by any means. I'm not going to be here on the Citizen Report shilling for either one of those governors, but I will say I'll take either one any day over this governor. And I think that for those, again, who can afford to, they're certainly going to look at leaving for those states. And if if Roy Cooper was smart, he would realize that he needs to really change what he's doing immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's committing political suicide, and maybe the deep state, their all assets are deployed, as Q said. Maybe this is part of that. Maybe they just think this is their last ditch attempt, and they don't care how they're perceived. They just think that they got to stop Trump however which way on all levels. And because I'll tell you this, they are going, and you can mark my words, and I'm not the only. This is not an original thought. I've heard other people say this. I truly believe, David, that they're going to push for voter by mail. They're going to push for voter by mail. They're not going to have anybody vote in person if they got their ideal way of doing things. But here's the thing, and the X22 report has made this point. If you can go to a store and stand in line at a store, then you can stand in line to vote. You don't need to do voter by mail. No, I'm not talking about absentee ballot, and I'm not to be a hypocrite. I've done absentee balloting quite a bit, and it's convenient, but I truly believe that we need to, as by default, vote in person, because that's the only way we can most safely safeguard against voter fraud. Because voter by mail, you don't know what's going to happen to that ballot once you put it in the mail. It could be tampered with or just done away with without being counted. And that's what they want, David. They want to use COVID-19 as an excuse to push their agenda with that, so they can stop Trump. I truly believe that's what they're doing. I truly believe that.
Yep.
All assets deployed.
That's what they want to do. And I have to wonder, could Trump, and this is not a suggestion or anything, something just came to my mind. I wonder if, say, Democrats try to push voter by mail, I have to wonder if Trump might suspend the election completely and stay in power.
That's an interesting thought. I've heard people actually bring that up before in the past. I think that in some form or another, but I think that actually could be a possibility. Now, I will say that technically, since this is what you're talking about here, not to get too technical, but the election is really not one election. It's 50 elections happening at the same time. You got 50 different states voting. And I will say this. In normal times, the president would not and should not have the power to do something to the election directly. But I will say, since we're talking about something where people are literally openly trying to tamper with the election and the safeguarding of it, I think that the president could invoke a certain provision of law, maybe the Insurrection Act of 1804. I'm not sure if that would be directly applicable, but if not that law, some law that he probably has the authority to set forth in an executive order. I do think I that gives me pause. It's a lot to think about. I will say, I definitely think that if they tried to do like a coup against him, I definitely think he could then suspend the election for a time. And we'll have to see how this plays out. If the mass arrests take place of these elitists and stuff, and depending on how it plays out, I could definitely see Trump suspend the election for due cause, and then redo the election the following year, perhaps. I don't know, but I think I'm not familiar with the law on that particular subject. I'll need to look into that, but that is an interesting possibility. I'm glad you mentioned that, because we got to look at every possibility these days, because we're not in normal times. We're definitely dealing with basically wartime scenario here. Not World War II, but a soft civil war of sorts, or infiltration from within, more accurately, from the deep state.
Exactly, and that's well put. We are not necessarily in a true civil war, but we are in a soft civil war right now in this country.
Exactly, and think about this: they're trying to destroy our history. Think about this. It's like, and I would again urge people. I've said this on past episodes, but people need to go watch X-22 Report, because that is a very, very good podcast. And I actually have something to say about that podcast specifically, or share something about that specifically in a moment. But let me say something else he mentioned too on that show. He basically said that when you're talking about what am I trying to say? With regards to the history of things, like George, look at Black Lives. Let's take Black Lives Matter, for example. I'm not going to try to overgeneralize. Let me just say specifically about Black Lives Matter. It was originally about George Floyd. Well, we've now morphed from George Floyd to this whole other thing. This has nothing to do with George Floyd anymore. When you're talking about removing statues of people, and that has nothing to do with George Floyd or protesting so-called police brutality, regardless of the merits or not about that.
Or how about this one? Considering a name change of the Washington Redskins.
Oh, that's just nuts. I mean,
clearly, those examples right there, including the name change of the Redskins, goes to show you that what Black Lives Matter is doing, it's not about George Floyd.
No, exactly.
It's about destroying our country.
It is. It absolutely is, David. And, when you're talking about, think about this. They want to remove even the likeness of Abraham Lincoln. Hello? Wanted to out. He was against slavery. When you're talking about wanting to remove the likeness of Abraham Lincoln, it has nothing to do. We know at that point, and we know that all along this was not about Black Lives Matter. This is a Democrat surrogate. And somebody said, now I don't know this for sure because I haven't looked at it myself, but someone was claiming that they're literally funneling money from Black Lives Matter to the Democrat Party, but specifically Joe Biden. Now, I don't know that for sure, but that's what I've heard. If anybody out there in the audience knows anything about that, please pass that along to us. I want to know about that. But I think, again, we do know that it's a money laundering organization de facto because of who's taking the money. Act Blue. It's a Democrat organization. And I'll just say this. as we said about Civil War, this is not a hot Civil War, mostly speaking. This is a soft Civil War, though. This is an infiltration from within. As Q said again, this is all assets have been deployed. The deep state, they are trying everything they can to stop Trump because they are toast if they lose this election. Because look at what Ghislaine Maxwell, look at her. She's now under arrest. And she knows everything about Epstein. She knows. And I don't think there's a lot of people that are getting ready to go down hard. Because I'll tell you this. Let's talk about middle ground, because this is something one of the things we wanted to talk about. But I think in terms of middle ground, that one of the things that is, because we talk about what's going to reunify America, what's going to make us one nation under God again instead of this fracturing situation. I think personally that it's going to be twofold. One is that these politicians are going to be, that they keep pushing the masks when there's clearly no reason to, because over 99% on average survival rate, disregarding age groups, of course. But you also have, on the other hand, when we have not just treason, like X-22 report said, it's not, people might sweep under the rug the treason charges and, things like that. But one thing that people will not disregard is when you're talking about pedophilia and child trafficking. That is going to be something where people are going to really take a pause and say, whoa, you're not just committing you didn't just commit treason. You're doing child trafficking and pedophilia, like in Hollywood. A lot of these people in Hollywood, people in Washington, all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where we're gonna see everyone come. Not everyone, but I think that's where you're gonna really see this one nation under God thing happen in a much more unified fashion, because that's going to, no normal citizen is going to stand by and tolerate child pedophilia and trafficking, in my opinion, in the current society. Even in this current society, nobody is going to put up with blaspheme, child trafficking, child pedophilia, and all this stuff that the satanic rituals and stuff like that. That's going to be where people really say we need to come together as a country because we have a common enemy against us. What are you? I want to hear what your thoughts are about this.
I think that I said this in off the air regarding middle ground. I feel like that even before COVID happened, I've noticed that there's been a trend, even well before COVID even, that the middle ground on both sides of the political spectrum has pretty much eroded well before COVID.
Yeah.
But now with COVID, I don't think there's such thing as a middle ground anymore.
At the moment, I will say, like, and I'm just talking about one microcosm, and by that I mean Reopen NC. That's just the Reopen movement here in North Carolina. This doesn't apply all the time in other states, but that shows you right there. They are non-political. They try to not take one side or the other with politicians, but even they are now coming together and saying, something, we now just need to impeach and remove Governor Cooper. So I think in the unlikeliest of ways, we are seeing things happen where people are coming together. And actually, David, I want you to keep sharing your thoughts about that, because and while you do, I actually have a video to show everyone, because I think this is going to show that actually people are starting to come together as one nation, as a unified nation, one nation under God once again. And David, I just keep talking about that, because I've got something to show, but I need to pull it up. But keep sharing your thoughts about that for a moment.
Okay, I think that the issue about middle ground is this: we need to have something where, yes, we disagree about one issue, but we can come together and compromise. We don't, rather than, politicians just, attacking one another, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need a lot more of that. I think we need a lot more independent people, or should I say people who are registered independent voters, and independent politicians being in office, rather than having all these Democrats and Republicans that just can't reach middle ground anymore.
Right.
Um,
Well, I think, here's the thing. I think, as I said, it kind of goes back to what I just said. We're seeing in the unlikeliest of ways that people we're starting to see some of the signs that people are actually coming together, because we're realizing there's a common enemy of this country, and that is the deep state. And when I say deep state, I don't just mean this kind of this vague thing. It's a real thing. We're talking about an elitist group of people that are unseen, that are that have controlled this country for a century, really, since the founding of the Federal Reserve and all that stuff. But I do have this to share with viewers, and I think this should give people pause, because look, let's face it, we've all thought at some time or another that California was a goner. California, there's no coming back for them, that they've gone so far to the left. There's so many leftists there. And of course, microcosm of that would be Los Angeles. But notwithstanding what we've thought about California, look at this. They banned fireworks. And I don't know if this was the state or the city of Los Angeles, but this footage was of Los Angeles. And I guess it was a city ban, at least a city ban, maybe a county, but at least city ban on fireworks. But look at this. Look at this. This is unbelievable. Watch this. People are saying enough.
Fireworks going off pretty much in every direction that you see here. Jasmine,
look at that.
The fire departments and police
fireworks everywhere across the city. Fireworks everywhere.
Well, they're putting up new
That's from KCAL 9.
I mean, they're saying,
and they have the lower third saying illegal fireworks.
In a majority of cities,
and that shows that, look at this. Again, this is illegal fireworks, quote-unquote illegal, color law, but, and look at that. All these people doing fireworks anyway. So I think even those in California beginning to realize the communism that is infiltrated the state of California, and I think that people are realizing that they cannot keep going down this way. So, yes, we have a lot of issues as a country, but when you see California doing that in mass, doing civil disobedience by way of doing fireworks, that should tell you that there's actually a lot of hope for. If there's hope for California, there's hope for America. And I think that once we see the unsealing of indictments, once we see a lot of these elites start to go down, and expose that child pedophilia, child trafficking, doing harm to children, and the satanic rituals, and I think that once that people realize that there's a satanic satanic enemy of America, I think that's where we're going to really start to see people coming together. And actually, David, the media wants us to think we're divided as a whole, but actually we're a lot more united, because if you look at the Trump rallies, it's not just white people. You got a lot of black people there too, Hispanics. And I mean, it tells you that, people who love America, who wants to see it continue to prosper as one nation under God, that I think that the media is trying to project division. You see CNN, they're trying to constantly stir up stuff, and Don Lemon and Chris Cuomo and all those people.
That's like CNN trying to stir up. What was it that I sent you? There were a couple of things I sent to you.
Oh yes. I didn't pull it up on the computer, but I have it on my phone. If you'll give me a second. Like for instance, let's just do a quick sampling of the two headlines you sent me from CNN. First one reads, Spain's coronavirus antibodies study adds evidence against herd immunity. Really? Against herd immunity? That's not even scientific, because herd immunity is where you have people develop antibodies. Let's just think about this for a second. If you got coronavirus and you were asymptomatic, you may and by the way, if you were asymptomatic, you may have never even knew you had it, which should tell you how completely harmless it is for most people. And yet, when they get over it, they have the antibodies, and then that means they are less, they're a lot more resistant to ever getting it again for a good period into the future, like a year. I don't know exactly what the time is, but for a good time into the future. But here's the other headline from CNN. U.S. is still knee-deep in the first wave of the coronavirus pandemic, Fauci says. Oh, the snake oil salesman speaks again, right? The Fauci.
Yep. And it's clear that even some, and even I have noticed this on this certain TV news site, that some Democrats or some people that may lean to the left are starting to realize that enough is enough.
Mm-hmm.
And
I know.
The only ones that obviously is that certain person that we're not going to name that is from Canada. Obviously, we're not going to. Obviously, we're not going to name
the guy that says not mankind, but we like to say people kind.
Yeah.
The wokeness of that statement is just spectacular, right?
Oh my goodness! Tell me about it. But other than that person that starts with J, other than that person, I have noticed that a trend of among people on that certain news site are starting to realize, Jonathan, that enough is enough.
I think the deep state has overplayed their hand everywhere. And I think people have just had, we saw that happen with the UK. They left the European Union and they, we're not talking about like a landslide type of deal, although who knows, voter fraud could have been in play. Who knows? Nobody really knows. But the UK did vote to leave the European Union. And I should tell you, that's a microcosm there, that people don't want to be part of globalism. They want to be sovereign. They want to have their own country and be in control, the people be in control of it, not the faraway Brussels people that like to be part of the New World Order crap. I mean, and that's what we're seeing here. We have declared independence from the deep state, that we've had it. We don't want to be controlled. We want to have our own sovereign country again. The thing about CNN though is just they want to, I think their credibility is in the toilet. I think even people on the left recognize that, because at least those with the brain, because CNN is just like, when you're suggesting like the MH, I forget the flight number. What is it? 370, the one that went missing back in 2014 over in the Far East.
We're talking about the Malaysian Airlines,
right? Malaysian Airlines flight 370. I think that's the one. But
that is the one.
Don Lemon asked the question about whether black hole could have been involved. It's just, that's the kind of discredited status that CNN has earned themselves. And so anytime they try to argue against the idea of herd immunity, in other words, they're trying to stoke fear in people, thinking that there is no such thing. It's scientifically, just unscientific to suggest there's no herd immunity or something against herd immunity. It's just nuts.
I agree, and I think, and you're right. It's really starting to get to the point where even some of the left that have a brain are saying enough is enough with CNN.
Yeah, I mean, I think there have been times where Hallmark Channel was scoring higher in ratings than CNN at this point. So, and I just wonder how much of the ratings were artificially inflated, because, and I don't know, but I do know that CNN had, they have secured exclusive contracts with airports to run CNN, like an airport version of CNN in the airports and such. And I just wonder if the numbers would be even lower if it weren't for that.
Mm-hmm. But then the question becomes, I have to wonder if even some of those airports are going to say enough is enough with CNN because of their ridiculousness.
Well, I think it might reach that point. I'm surprised it hadn't already.
And when it does, what is CNN going to do then?
Well, I mean, they're part of a big conglomerate, so it's not like they'll just run out of money. AT&T can just write it off on their taxes, if anything, if worse comes to worse for them. But I'll just say this, circle it back. I think that, we talk about middle ground. I think that one of the things that could happen is that we're going to see, as the Democrats completely implode, I think we're going to see the end of the two-party system. And I'll tell you how I think that's going to happen. And this isn't just me talking. I have heard people suggest that the party will literally fracture, the Democrat Party, that is. So I think what we'll see is the Democrats will become just so weakened to the point of oblivion if they end up fracturing as a party. Because say what you want about the Republicans, we have the good people in the Republican Party, but we have the rhinos that really need to be flushed out. Mitt Romney, he needs to be expelled, flushed out. But and Murkowski of Alaska, her too. She's not a Republican. She's a rhino, and a rhino is Republican in name only, and hence the name, in name only. They try to act like a Republican, but even the act doesn't work. And I think that when we see, because there's already a lot of contempt for rhinos, but when we see that combined with potentially the Democrats fracturing, it'll either be a fracture, or I think what could happen as well, just as equally what could happen, is the far left. Well, they already have, and let's just be honest, they've already taken it over. But let's say that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, her faction of the Democrat Party, fully cements on most levels that viewpoint in the Democrat Party. It's over for them, because most people aren't going to go for that. And I think that it'll either be that, or, as I said, the party will fracture into a far left and a moderate left deal, and both will be small. And I think at that point, that will be the effective end, de facto end to the two-party system, David. So there's a lot of different ways that this could happen, but I do think the two-party system is going to go away at some point, as it should, because, look, our founding fathers were against the idea of, a lot of our founding fathers at least, were against the idea of having a party system. So because tyranny can emerge from that alone. So, and we've seen that. So I think that what I think should happen, and I'll toss it to you in a second, but I think what should happen is that the party system should go away, ideally. I am a registered Republican, but I think at the end of the day, I think that people should be elected on their merits: pro-life, pro-liberty, pro-American. And I think that, pro-God, of course, and promoting good and wholesome, anything that's good and wholesome. And at that point, if that means the end of the two-party system, it means the end of the two-party system. What do you think, David?
I think you said everything about that there, but I'll expand on that. Not only do I see the Democrats fracturing, but I also see Republicans fracturing as well. I think when both parties fracture, meaning that, you talked about with the Democrats, but on the Republican side, you would have, the rhinos, like the Romneys, the Murkowskis of the world, and then, the far right, like the Trumps and people like that are far right. I think when those things happen to both Democratic Party and the Republican Party, I think it will be the end of the two-party system at that point.
I think one way or another, we're definitely going to see the end of like where we see just one party or the other party being in control of things. But I think I here's the thing I wonder about. I think that the Republican Party will become. I'm careful. I'm careful to not overstate this, but I do wonder if it's possible that the Republicans will get so much support, not necessarily for the party, but because we have Trump and then we have the movement with Trump. That I think what we could see is the Republicans become so ubiquitous that at that point we don't need a party. We're just say we're Americans and that we're for America, we're for God, we're for life. Anything that
Good
promotes,
and wholesome.
yeah, the American values, the American way of life. I think I'm like you. I think that the two-party system, I don't think that at least in the current form, it's not gonna always be like this.
Exactly. And I have to wonder if here's the thing. I think with the way both parties have performed so far with this virus, I think the end of the two-party system may actually occur a lot sooner than what we're thinking right now.
Right. I agree. I mean, I've even seen Republicans take the wrong approach. They require masks and they've ordered people to stay at home. They've ordered businesses closed. The Democrats were just more extreme about it. But yeah, to be fair, there were a lot of Republicans that did that too. And
either that or they didn't take enough, safety precautions to protect ourselves against COVID.
And again, I'm careful to not overstate this, but I think that we've seen some Republicans take that wrong approach that now I don't know, I can't read the guy's brain, but I do wonder if some of them realized their error and pulled back, because we had, for instance, Governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp, who I remember him saying when he decided to start opening things back up, and he got a lot of people mad because the Democrats like, how dare you reopen? You're going to kill people. And he basically said, look, I don't care about politics right now. And he started just allowing things to reopen gradually. But I do think that some of the Republicans, not all of them, some of them were just in the wrong and just have continued to be in the wrong in a lot of different ways. But some of them have at least have been willing to say, look, we need to just reopen, start reopening. The only governor that comes to mind that has been totally 100% right, and I say governor because Trump, I think, has done the right approach, and I'll explain why here as briefly as I can. And I know we're running out of time, but let me just say, I think Trump what he's done in X-22 has done an excellent explanation of this, but just to try to give you the 30-second version of it, Trump has basically allowed the states to make the decisions. He's allowed the separation of powers because that is how it's supposed to work. The president is the federal. He's supposed to be dealing with federal matters because we delegate certain powers to the federal government for foreign affairs and for certain national functions. But at the end of the day, we do have what's called domestic sovereignty. Each state has domestic sovereignty, and I think what Trump has done is brilliant. He's allowed the states to have their own say. He's allowed the guidelines, which I thought were insane, not by him, but by Birx, the scarf lady, and the snake oil salesman, aka Dr. Fauci or Fauci. And I think
Fauci.
Yeah, I think on two fronts I think Trump has been brilliant on two fronts. One, he's exposed the deep state of the health of these health agencies like Fauci and Birx. It's like X-22 said. Do you really think nobody would have known who these people are had we not had this happen, where Trump has pushed them out into the light? And yet now everyone knows who Fauci is, everyone knows who Birx is, and everyone, guess what? They're not happy with, not with Trump, those who are thinking normally and critically, but of Birx and Fauci. So Trump has exposed them, but on the state level, you've exposed the tyrants, those who have overstepped their boundaries, the Democrats, and then also some of the rhinos. And I think, David, that we're going to see a lot of things change for the better as long as Trump keeps power in November. I think he will, and I think Q means what he says when he says the Patriots are in control. I think that Q means that. I think the Patriots are going to be in control. They are in control, and they know the Democrats, the deep state's playbook. And I'll just say one more thing, real quick, if I may. The deep state. Here's the thing. You know, you've got, and I actually meant to say this. The only governor, the only state level person, as in the governorship, that I've actually liked 100% of the time was you'll have to correct me if I say her name wrong. Kristi Noem.
You said it right.
Yeah, this governor of South Dakota. She, and I'm not quoting her word for word, but in essence, she's basically said, "I'm not shutting down the state. I'm going to allow the citizens to decide for themselves. You know, they're going to be informed. I trust the citizens of my state to make the right choices." I like that about her because she did what was constitutionally right. She did not wield her power in an unconstitutional, tyrannical way. She just said, "Look, here's the situation. And then now I'm going to let you as the citizenry decide what to do about it. I'm not shutting down the state." So I think I really like that. I like that. And I hope that in the future we see more governors like that. Don't you agree?
I agree. I agree with that. We need a lot more people like Noam. We do.
Yeah.
And I think with the two-party system going away, I think we're going to see probably more independents or registered independents holding office, even in some cases. So.
Right. Or the smaller parties, maybe, perhaps, like the libertarians. Now, there's a lot of things I don't like about the libertarians. I don't like that there's some things I don't like about the Libertarian Party, but I will say that I do like some of the ideas that they have. And I think that if they can kind of adopt some of the Republican ideas and all that stuff, I think I'd be quite happy to see a number of libertarians come into power as well. So I just think it will be a beautiful thing if we just have Americans voted on their merits, not based on the party or all this stuff, but we can finally assess the individual as we vote.
Exactly. And this way we can assess the individuals based on their merits, not based on the party or anything like that. And here's the thing. I hate the two-party system. I really do.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
I mean,
they're all in one. They're all in one, really. Not, I think there is a cleansing. I didn't mean to step on you, but if I can just say in about 10 seconds, the deep state, they controlled the Republican Party for so long. We're seeing a cleansing taking place, I think, because Trump is exposing the bad Republicans. And he's kind of bringing this wave in of good Republicans, of good people that are leaving the Democrats, becoming Republicans maybe, or at least independents. And I think that I think that we're on a good trajectory. Now, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on you. What were you going to say there?
I was going to say that I think we're going to have more good people, good and wholesome people, taking positions, whether it be on the city level, the state level, or even the federal level.
Right.
And I think that by getting rid of the two-party system, we may perhaps allow some of the smaller parties, like the Libertarian Party and what's the other party's name? I think it's the Green Party.
Sounds right. I'll be honest. There's nothing I've liked about that party.
I agree. Even though we don't, there's things about the Green Party that clearly we don't like. I think even those smaller parties like that, I think we're going to see a lot of those finally get a chance to, get in the power that they've been so desperate for so long.
Well, you've also had the Constitution Party as well, not to forget them.
Exactly.
So you got all these different people, and look, we can see all kinds of parties take place. We could have we can just see. I mean, heck, who knows? At this point, Trump might form his own party. I think that'd be fantastic. if we have the Trump party. I don't know if we call it the Trump party, but I think that'd be fantastic to have something like that as well. So, down the road.
And speaking of the Green Party, I think people like Bernie Sanders and AOC would be excellent fits for the Green Party.
Yeah, because that would mean they never get elected.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, with the way
They gave you
AOC
free stuff, free college. I don't know how I'm going to pay for it, but free college. I've watched a little bit too much of Steven Crowder do the impersonation of Bernie Sanders.
Well, well, here's the thing. I think those people would just fit with the Green Party perfectly.
Yeah.
AOC in particular, with some of her ideas would actually, I think, blend in with the Green Party pretty well. Just saying.
Oh boy. I don't know how to talk about her without insulting her, to be honest.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, she's like,
I want to do what is right. I discovered today that 2 + 2 = 4. I always thought it was equal 5. I mean, I just figured out this brilliant problem that 2 + 2 = 4.
this is, that's how she talks that's how she talks. She sounds like a 5-year-old in a 30-year-old. I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I don't know what is it with her, AOC.
AOC is an idiot. And let's just put it nicely. Let's just put it this way. AOC is an idiot. Or as Judge Judy would say, you're an idiot.
Well, John B. Ross would have a certain phrase to refer to her that I won't use on the air. Okay. I mean, look, and let's not to forget Ilhan Omar. She was on TV I think it was a public broadcasting, probably, I'm assuming it was like a PBS kind of station, up in the Tri-Cities area. This was before her time in Congress, and she was actually not condemning Al-Qaeda. She was talking about Al-Qaeda. She was like, I don't know. I couldn't quite decipher her meaning of Al-Qaeda, but I didn't mean to get off on that. But it's just, this is the kind of insane people we're talking about here.
I mean, Omar would be a good fit for the Green Party too. if you think about it.
Yeah.
Both of those idiots would be good fits for the Green Party, because that's what the Green Party is. They're idiots.
Yeah.
The Green Party is.
Well, I mean, maybe just go ahead and throw Pelosi in there too. I mean, especially if you think you should be drunk as a skunk by 9 in the morning.
I think a lot of the extreme socialists, like Pelosi, like AOC, like Omar, like Sanders, are going to probably join the Green Party.
Yeah, or some party, but it'll be so far to the left that, oh boy. I mean, I don't know. All right, we've got way too off topic here, but let me just say, as we wrap up, or getting ready to wrap up, I think that, as we said, the two-party system is going to go away, or at least it will become a different kind of system, different kind of dynamics. And I also think that our country is actually more united than the mainstream media would ever allow us to think. Even though, yes, we have our issues, I think that when it comes right down to it, when we finally see because a lot of us already know a lot about this stuff, not everything, of course, but when we finally see the child pedophilia and child trafficking become public information, I think that's what's going to really bring the people together and say, we have a deep state that's been pushing harm against children, the satanic rituals, and I think that that's what's going to bring all of us together. So, I think the Trump and the Patriots, they know exactly how to do this to wake the people up, because we're seeing a very gradual waking up of people, because you're seeing a lot more people wake up all the time. So we'll keep following this for you here on the Citizen Report. That's what we try to do. Try to do the best we can. David, I don't guess you've joined Parler yet, have you?
No, not yet.
Okay, well, on Parler, you can find me. No, it doesn't seem like it's gaining traction yet, so I don't know. I don't know how long term it's going to be, but if you want to follow me on Parler, you may. I'm at Real Jonathan Shannon. As always, you can find me on Twitter at The Jonathan News, on Facebook at Jonathan Shannon, Instagram Jonathan Shannon 96, and on YouTube, my full name, Jonathan Ryan Shannon. And David, do tell where they can find you on social media.
Basically, most of the same platforms. Even though I have begun to notice that I don't use Facebook that much anymore, or Twitter.
Oh, really?
Because both platforms have gone so far to the left.
Yeah. Well, they're censoring people. That's the issue.
Exactly. Not only are they censoring people, but even I've noticed that Facebook is even censoring media outlets when it comes to the COVID stuff. They even censored, of all places, CNBC.
Yeah, that's when they eat their own. That's a big deal. But they censored. I think Twitter's now starting to kind of crack down on President Trump. Even. I mean, that's just insane. I mean, isn't that akin to election tampering in a way? If they're censoring one candidate but not the other.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be interesting to see how the coming months unfold with regards to the election. Sleepy Joe Biden, Uncle Joe, I don't think he's going to be around in the elections in November. I think that if they're dumb enough to keep him around, they get what's coming to them. But I truly believe they're still going to do a switcheroo, and I think Michelle Obama is going to be coming into the picture very, very soon. So we'll keep watching that for you. And David, it's great to have you on as always. And to everyone at home, thank you for tuning into the Citizen Report. Don't forget our website at thecitizenreport.weebly.com. As we close, do get in touch with us if you have any ideas for a potential backup platform to join. I am looking at options to create a redundancy in case if anything were to happen to my YouTube channel, because we are a truth kind of newscast, and that's what we strive for. And also, I'll just say briefly, in the coming months, you're going to see a lot of good things happen with the Citizen Report. I'm going to be getting hopefully a voiceover, some graphics, and maybe kind of a more unified format. So I think our it's a lot of great things are going to happen to the Citizen Report in the coming months. So on that note, thank you to everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you right back here again next time. Have a great night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.